Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by sportsshoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Okay, hello, welcome back to another episode. The dust has finally settled on the World Indoor Champs. Matt, you look like you had a whale of a time, mate. So we'll get into that, mate. How was it at the event, first of all?
Oh, mate, it was a great experience. I mean, it was full on. I was in the mix zone basically. That was my role for a few different companies, just kind of getting interviews. And pushing those out on their platforms. So yeah, that was it was an experience for sure. That's my first mix zone I've been in. I was in the London Marathon one, but the World Indoors was just obviously a whole different ball game. Like, it was a lot busier, and obviously, you know, a lot more athletes coming through it as well. So yeah, it was a little bit of imposter syndrome, I guess, when I first walked in there day one, and Grant Holloway comes like bowling through, running his mouth, and I was just like, oh boy, what do I ask this man? Like, you almost just freeze up a little bit. But yeah, got guided through it, and by the end, I was well and truly enjoying my time. So now it was a good weekend, mate. But yeah, I guess we got to get into some of these performances. I actually thought it was a fantastic champs, and look, we'll get on to. I mean, obviously in the news they were mentioning that London might host 2029, and again, like, I can't remember the last champs I saw in the UK that wasn't like just on a different level. You know, sellout crowd all the time, noisy crowd, knowledgeable crowd. Like, yeah, we are biased, but Jesus, I think the UK is the best place to come and host a major champs.
Yeah, and you do hear good things from the athletes as well. I do think the athletes, like the foreign
they
athletes,
love
like coming here to compete. But like you say, we're biased, so maybe we should collab with some podcasters from another country to have that sort of discussion in the future. But yeah, as you said, mate, like this episode all about the world champs, so we'll chat about that, and then obviously, like you said, get into some news as well. But we got to start with Josh Kerr, don't we? Because I think it was one of the most hyped up races, I guess. Like, he's just been hyping everyone up all winter long, and I think just the most dominant display as we could have expected, I guess. I think obviously he won last year in surprising fashion. This time he came to the World Indoor Champs like a world champ and really raced like one as well.
Nail on the head, mate. Yeah, the way he was talking before the champs, just the way he ran in that race, just like he never looked phased. I actually thought his positioning was pretty poor early on, to be honest with you. There were times where he was mid-pack and basically he was just stuck on the inside. A load of people overtake him. He found himself at the back of that race quite a few times at different periods, and then would have to kind of move up. And he made a few, like, I guess, moves on the inside as well to kind of move up a few spots when the gap opened. But again, he would just be running into a wall up at the front. So he finally gets out with 200 to go, and boy, like, just, yeah, different grade. 25-1 last 200, and I haven't checked the stats or anything like that, but when Mark did it 2 years ago, I think Borrega ran a 26-0 last 200. So that's definitely one of the fastest last 200s we've seen in a while. The big thing for me that so what the fuck are his rivals thinking now? Like, he is full of confidence. He seems untouchable. He's closing hard. He's a 328 man. Honestly, if I'm Jakob, I'm quivering.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I think everyone else now looks at him and they're like, "Fool! Like, how do you take on that?" Because the 1500 notoriously has been the event that is so hard to kind of stay at the top of, and it's so unpredictable. But Josh Kerr right now is making it look like it's going to be a predictable one. What I would say though is if anyone is going to back themselves against that, it is Jakob. So I think we're in for a hell of a summer. I'm just hoping Jakob's sort of injuries aren't so bad that he is really way off it, you know, like, because if he can get himself obviously back to kind of the shape we know Jakob can get into, I think it's just going to be a great summer. Obviously, we still back Kerr, but I think look, both of them at their best, like head to head. I think it's just a fantastic race either way. But I do think you're right, mate. Like, especially doing it over the 3K as well. Like we know he's got decent speed. He's like dabbled with the half a bit this year and last year, showing a bit of strength. And then yeah, doing over the 3K as well, and obviously his 2 mile, like he is really focusing in now. So I don't know, mate. I guess if I knew the answer to how your rivals kind of cope with that, then yeah, I'd have the answer for everyone. But I don't know. What do you do? What do you do when an athlete is that dominant?
Well, look, I personally think after that result, I think the Olympics will be a slow tactical 1500. I think it will be a traditional championship 1500. And I mentioned this a few times over the weekend after Kerr, and a lot of people were like, don't be ridiculous. Everyone can run fast. Jakob will take it from the front. If he doesn't, someone else will. McSwain will. And I'm like, all it takes is for Jakob not to quite believe in himself and him for not to quite be in the shape he is. Fair play if he takes it up, but he's been beaten 2 years in a row, taking it up. And honest to God, like everyone is too good now. Like Kerr is too good. You're not going to outrun him. I don't think if Jakob, it would take a world record to probably outrun Kerr right now. And who can front run a world record? Like Jakob's great, he's amazing. I don't think he can front run a world record. That world record of El Garouge is just ridiculous. So in my head, I'm just like, I genuinely think it will be. I think Jakob is. He's become very, very predictable over the years. I think people like McSwain have become very, very predictable. And look, they may go and front run that 1500, and I think that'll be a terrible idea because I think you really are playing into the hands of Kerr. He will sit in second, he will sit in third, and he will get by you. If not Kerr, someone else will. Nagoose will.
Mm.
Someone else will come by you. And so I think that it will be a tactical 1500 just because it's unpredictable. People are going to panic. People aren't going to know what to do. And I am so excited for it. But that's the way I think the race is going to go.
Yeah, I think you might be right, mate. And I think since since Centro won in 2016, that kind of curve of everyone learning to kick off a fast pace has obviously kind of come into the fore. And I think perhaps, yeah, like you say, we could go back to that sort of race that what did they run, 350 that day in Rio. So maybe it
Uh-huh.
won't be as tactical as that, but I do get what you're saying. I think it does open it up to a lot more people, but at the same time, does Kerr let it go that slow? I know he backs his
Well, this is
kick,
the thing.
but
This is the thing. I think your best chance of beating someone like Kerr is to have a tactical race because the more
mm,
people in that race at the end makes it more difficult for people to make moves, for people to overtake. Because if you've got 8 men kicking down that home straight, there's traffic. And unless your positioning is absolutely perfect, like Centro and Rio, you don't stand a chance of winning it. So I think that's if you're a different 1500 runner in that field, your best chance of beating Kerr right now, things may change in the summer, is probably if it is a super slow tactical race and all 12 men are involved with 200 to go.
yeah, it's just like you say, it depends on people letting it go slow, doesn't it? Speaking of people who kind of reap the rewards of being in a good position, let's move on to that men's 15 because Hobbs Kessler obviously came out with the bronze in the end, but probably someone you would not expect to take bronze, like still a very young athlete, but led the race the whole way, and it meant that all that traffic, especially indoors, that no one could really get past except the guys who were kicking super quick in Geordie Beamish and Cole Hocker.
Yeah, to be fair, Hobbs has been running really well, so I kind of expected him to feature for the medals. I had Hocker down to win before the race. I just thought he's moving well. If he gets himself in the right spot, kicks well, he'll win it. I think where Hocker went wrong, he just tried to go wide
Mm,
too much around that last 200. And Hobbs is such a good athlete that to really get by Hobbs, you've got to be moving very, very fast, or Hobbs has to be moving at his slowest. And this is how Beamish got by the pair of them because he only attacked when they were slowing up, when they were both tying up. And hence why he was able to just go through them that last 50. And it's so funny, isn't it? Because when you watch these 1500s, it is all about when you attack. If you're trying to attack someone when they're probably think with 150 to go, Hobbs and Hocker were probably out there like close to, well, Hobbs especially close to his max speed throughout that whole race and the others as well. So you're trying to overtake someone when they're like, probably running 26 point at that stage. Um, So yeah, I think Hulker got unlucky. His positioning wasn't great, but Beamish, Jesus Christ, that's some nerve to sit at the back. And I
Mm.
usually slate the OXC guys because I just feel like they all do that. They're just always like, I think there's a name for it, dump trucking. Just like sits at the back, comes late, finishes second, and goes, "Oh, look at my kick. I could have won, but never, never in contention for the win." And just like beat the rest of the people who actually tried to win. But hey, I think Beamish watching the Goose's race the night before and learned a thing or two.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like you say, that is the difference between indoors and outdoors, really. I think for Cole Hocker, he's got so used to having this like incredible kick outdoors where with 200 to go, I think you can be at max speed because the curve of the track, for example, and the space you have means you can just carry that through. Whereas indoors, the ups and downs at that pace, you can't maintain it on a bend. So you're gonna have to go up and down. So you need to wait like Beamish did. And obviously paid off for him. But like you say, yeah, it is a bit risky sitting back there, but I think he got himself in a good position. And I think like we've seen over the past couple of years, he is a good indoor runner. He's won some good races indoors. So look, you put here on our
Mm.
notes, should he tackle the 1500 outdoors or stick with that steeple? I still think the steeple is his best shot. I think it's a really good step forward for him. But I think when you throw in all the rest of the guys on the outdoor 1500 scene, he's nowhere near.
Mm. Yeah, I, I personally think he should do the 1500. I mentioned just then, I think it's going to be a tactical race in Paris. And throw Beamish into that equation, he's just got such a good kick that he could feature. He must also be in I mean, he must be in low 330 shape anyway. He's never really done like I guess last year he was doing a lot of steeples. He's never seen him, we've never seen him test himself over a 1500
I
in
know
a
what you're
while
saying, but
now.
at the end of the day, yes,
He
he's
must
beat
be a
some other athletes
329 guy, 330 guy.
yes, he's beat some other guys as well. But like, look at that podium: Beamish,
Yeah,
Hocker, Kessler.
yeah, yeah,
Do
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, Kessler's not making a final. Hocker is not doing anything in that final, right? So winning the world indoors, I just think where was he last year? Fourth in the steeple, fifth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a better run than winning a world indoor champs in the field. Yeah.
I think the temptation will be too much, to be honest. I think this is going to be one of the most historic 15 finals, or certainly before the race, whether the race
Mm.
pans out in amazing fashion, we'll see. But I think before the race, because of the hype all around it as well, if you are an athlete towing that line in the final, I think that will be special because we're in a special era of 1500 running. We got some fantastic names in the hat as well. And I think you'd want to be a part of that. And he's not going to touch the top two in the steeple, Germa and Albacali. They're
No, but I
untouchable.
think you could. I think you could sneak a medal. Like if you're talking about whether he's got a better chance of medaling in the 15 or medaling in the steeple, I'm not saying I think he's going to do either necessarily. I'm not. I'm not. This is not me slating Geordie Beamish, by the way. But it's just the standard of the world event. But I probably would say he's got more chance in the steeple after that being his first year of steeples last year and finishing
Yeah.
yeah fourth, I
But I
think.
mean, right now, like
Is he
that
making your
third
top 10
spot is
1500
wide
runners in the
open.
world? I know we just had a world indoors, but I don't think he is.
Oh, I don't know, mate, because
We got six Brits better
we
than him.
would yeah, but six Brits can't be there.
I know.
Yeah,
But
and like Chariots, like is he past it? Like Mo Katir's been busted for drugs. I
mm,
actually think the 1500 isn't as strong this year or going into this year as it was last year, to be honest. I mean,
yeah. When you put it
Jesus,
like that, a couple of those, and
Mokatir's a
Jakob
big
being
loss for
injured.
that 1500.
Mm,
Yeah. Like Garcia Romo doesn't look to be quite running as well as he was last year and especially in 2022 as well. So it's 2022, I think he ran really well, wasn't it? So it doesn't look to be quite Ollie Hall. I mean, he's had a few injuries. I mean, he's doesn't seem to be the athlete he was in 2022. Let's see how he runs, opens his season. I actually think the 1500 will be slightly weaker this year than it was the previous 2 years.
mm. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I just yeah, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? And it's one I'm sure a discussion he's having with his coach, because yeah, like you say, the temptation after winning a world indoor champs, you're like, well, of course I'm going to the Olympics in the 15. So time will tell. Time will
Central,
tell. We
central
get on
indoors
to
and out.
he did. Yeah, a bit more dominant, I think, his Centro's world indoor title was though. But yeah, let's get into we'll go men's 800 then we'll do all the women's events. Another American, obviously like, host of medals. Obviously Nagoose second in the 3K, two in the 15 with Hocker and Kessler, and then Bryce Hoppel takes the win for the 8. Were you surprised by that, mate?
Not really. He did look good in the heats. Most importantly, I think in an indoor 800, you're just looking to see who can react, who can change pace the best, and to be honest, who just ties up the least. That's probably an obvious thing to say, but when people tie up coming off that bend, they really lose some ground. And yeah, we saw Beamish's kick and the 800 as well. It's just like doubled. So Hopper was looking good through the rounds, but that 800 was ridiculous, mate. Benjamin Robert, disgusting man. Like he just caused so much havoc in that race. And honestly, I felt for Garcia because I think Garcia had a big chance to win that race, but Robert just screwed him over. Like he just pushed him, shoved him. Like Garcia couldn't get to the front. Robert was, adamant he wanted to be at the front, and then just basically like after 150, 200 meters, just was going backwards. And then another 200 to go, Robert starts to have like a punch up towards the back of the pack. And Bryce Hoppel, to be honest, he just stayed out of trouble. Like there were some big boys in in that indoor 800 though. Like Kramer's a big guy. He was having a few, fisticuffs. So was Crestan. So yeah, it was an interesting race. It was an exciting race, but I did feel sorry for a few of the men in that race because I feel like if that was a heat or a semi-final, Garcia definitely would have been bumped up to the
Yeah,
final.
yeah,
He was
yeah.
that
It's
was a foul. Like he had so
difficult,
many
isn't it,
fouls against.
in athletics? Because like, what on earth can you do?
You
Like,
can't do
there's not
anything. Like
you can't
if
do
you wanted
anything, can
to,
you?
yeah, if you wanted to, you could just screw someone up big time. Like if that was your
Yeah.
motive, you could just screw them up. There could even be a bit of tea. Obviously, athletics is quite a fair sport, and I think athletes are very fair. But you had a couple of athletes
Well,
on the
minus
same
the
team as
drugs. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, minus that,
Yeah,
minus that. Yeah, there's almost this presumption that yeah, everyone's just gonna stand on the start line and be fair to each other. But I think from a fan's perspective, it is despite it being very frustrating for the athletes, I do think it does make for some exciting racing, especially indoors. Um, so yeah, great win, and obviously Kramer second as well. He's someone that we sort of over the years he sort of has promise, and everyone's always like, oh yeah, he could be someone who competes. So maybe we'll see him on the outdoor circuit a bit more than we have recently, I think, because I definitely think the 800 is one where someone needs to someone needs to take the reins, don't they, and start being dominant in an 800 season,
yeah.
on the men's side, I
It's
mean.
I mean, Marco Arup looks like he's starting to dominate. To be honest, man, he looks like he's slowly becoming his event, and everyone
Yeah.
else is playing second fiddle. So, but women's, do you want to start with that women's 3K? Just like, oh, it was a fantastic race. For me, it was one of the races of the champs. I actually thought out of all the events, that race had the most depth as well. To
Mm.
have a 14-minute world record holder in that race and get beat by Ellie St. Pierre was just fantastic. I mean, Beatrice Chepkoech, I mean, she ran a national record at Kenya. Like it was just off the charts. But mate, let's focus on Laura Muir and the way she attacked the race, well, the way she ran the race, and just where she's at as well. Like, has she? I sort of came away from that thinking, will Laura Muir ever get a global medal again? Maybe that's unfair.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke before saying that we could potentially have three Scottish athletes with three golds, didn't we? And obviously Kerr delivered, Reekie closer to silver, and then no medal for Muir. But like you say, I think the margins are just so small in this sport, and particularly with some of the athletes there. Like obviously, if you look at it on paper and you're like, oh well, St. Pierre's going to win, you're like, well, Laura Muir could beat her. But actually, the athletes she's beat, the performance she's put in to do it, like 820 is no joke at all in a championship race. So I don't know. To say is she ever going to win a global championship, I think is maybe harsh to. I'm sure she'll be disappointed. Like, is a disappointing result, but it doesn't mean it's a terrible one, you know?
No, no, and obviously it is easy to get carried away after indoors, especially when it's a world indoors, because you're kind of like, oh, and you just forget, like, athletes are preparing for the Olympics. Like, that's the
Yeah,
bottom line. Good. And so she, but I just, it's more a look at her and where she is in her career. Like, obviously now she's got a different coach. She's under Steve Vernon. 2015, she was running 355, 356. Like, the Olympics, she was like, that 2016, she was so unfortunate not to get a medal that day. I mean, that
mm,
field was just disgusting. And obviously you had, Dibaba and Semenya and people like Hassan and people like that in there. And she was just in this like brutal era of 1500 running. And then of course, then she started to get the medals. But now we're 9 years, we're like 8 years, 7 years, 6 years on from that. And I feel like that is a look. She's doing amazing that she's still at the top of the game and still competing, because
yeah,
her career has actually been, to have a career at the top flight for that long, over 1500, not over 5Ks or anything like that, that's a big deal. But I'm just looking now, the event's just looking to be moving on. Like, and has she run her PB over 1500, or will she run quicker? I don't know.
yeah.
She just looked a bit flat for me in
Mm,
that race, and it was unlike, like, Muir usually gets on it from the start, and there was an opportunity to, but it almost looked like she just couldn't. She just didn't have the speed to do so.
okay. Let me pose you this question though. Does she win that 1500
Oh, the women's 1500.
in the world indoors? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
see,
think
that's
she
a good
does.
point. I thought that was a
So
pretty weak 1500.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know. Like, I think you're right in that. Like, yeah, I think I even said before. I think 3K is potentially one of her best events, but I think the standard maybe was just too hard on the day.
Mm.
She's not going to go to the 5K outdoors and medal. She go to 5K and be successful. Don't get me wrong, but the pace they're running now, like, it's no longer so
Oh
much
man,
of a
they run
tactical
40
affair.
day for fun.
Yeah, like when it
Yeah.
when it was a bit more tactical, yeah, fine. Maybe the 5K would have been the move. She's not going to drop down and compete with the likes of Keely, etc. in the 8. But a 15, I still think the depth is there, but minus Kipyegon, I don't think there is any standouts as in
Mm.
compared to Laura Muir. There's a lot of standouts in the depth, but I don't think there's anyone you're like is head
That's
and
what I
shoulders
mean. Yeah.
above Muir,
Yeah.
minus Kipyegon. She's the only one.
Yeah.
So then you're like you're
Yeah.
actually one of the best of the rest. So I don't know. All it takes is Kipyegon to have a slip up, or maybe she decides like enough's enough. She moves on events wise, and then
Mm.
you're still there. Like you say, she's still been at the top. So she keeps going. Don't know what Kipyegon's plans are, but I don't know. Like, you think of, yeah, the other best people in the world, like your Kira McGeehan's, your Jess Hull, um, for example. So you're not backing them against Muir
Yeah.
like every day of the week, are you? So, and I think she would have won that World Indoor 1500 champs last weekend. I mean, it's easy to
Pretty
say,
weak,
but
wasn't it?
when you look at it, yeah, Hailu, Nikki Hiltz, Naomi Mackey,
Yeah.
you're putting Laura Muir like well in the mix in
Yeah,
that
like
race, I think.
yeah, they're good runners, but they're like, if they're lucky, they might scrape into a final,
Yeah,
yeah, a major champ, like if they're lucky. So, but wait, to be fair, on that, Ray and Georgia Bell, like, good solid runs from them.
yeah, for
Georgia
sure.
Bell for your first indoors to come fourth or fifth, um,
Yeah,
is
and
very
tried to get
strong.
on it as well. Didn't like shy away from when the moves are made. Didn't
Honestly,
shy
I
away
thought
from
she
getting
might
on the
medal
back of it.
because
Yeah, same. Yeah.
yeah, I thought she might medal, because in my head I was just like, she's run 402, 403 so many times this year, and she's front run a lot of those as well.
Mm,
And so I was like, well, if she gets carried around to a bit of a faster time, or if it's a sit and kick job, like she's going to be in with a really good shout. But yeah, I think the way the race went and kind of Mackay putting that surge from quite a long way out, I think that made it quite hard for Georgia being like a slow start as well. So, um, but yeah, I think certainly that third spot. I mean, if we go Snowdon and Muir, that third spot for Paris is going to be it's
I,
going to be interesting from that 1500. And in the women's eight, let's just get through that as well. I mean, I what did you think watching this? I thought Reekie could have won, but she seemed to just let the Ethiopian really control the race.
yeah, I think it's so hard to say because I also think Riki's full of confidence at the moment, and she's probably just backing herself. And in an 800 more than the other events, it's obviously so hard to hit that negative split. And like when you're running, or what the winning time 201, when you're running that sort of pace, it's so hard to pick up. And I think that, yeah, like you say, obviously in hindsight, you could look back and be like, oh, Ricky needs to take the race by the scruff of the neck and make it quicker and things like that. But at the same time, it's a championship race, and at that level, you're going into it backing your kick and you're backing yourself. So I think
Mm.
yes, like the question, could you have won gold? Probably if you did something different, but at the same time, you could always argue that when you're kind of in a top three, unless you get absolutely dominated. So I think above anything else, it's just a brilliant run from Reekie. Like I appreciate she wanted to win, but getting a silver medal, she's back on track. Like a couple of years ago, we were like, is she ever going to be anywhere near her best again? And now we're like, actually, she just won a world indoor silver medal going into another Olympic year. Can she convert that into the Olympic medal that she kind of narrowly missed out on in Tokyo?
I think she's got a pretty good shot at that for sure. Um, yeah, and you got to give credit where it's due. Like Daguma ran a 27 high,
Mm,
like 27.9 or something, like 200, which is just, at the end of an 800 is just, even if it is slow, that's some pickup, some change of pace.
yeah,
However, I don't remember seeing this Daguma last year. I mean, maybe I missed a few races. But oof,
I think we were just so focused on the top three, though, weren't we, last year?
yeah,
In that it's been
I
really
think.
hard to follow everyone else in the women's 800 because Keely Hodgkinson, Mora, and I think Mo obviously so dominant. So
Yeah, I look at this and I think this Daguma is going to be a bit of a headache as well in the summer for those wanting to get an Olympic medal. So you just bet she's going to be there. You just know she's going to be there as well. So yeah, so that was World Indoors. I mean, again, fantastic champs for me. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and I think everyone in the stadium and everyone at home did as well. But let's move on to London Marathon start list were announced today. Well, not today, but this week. Obviously, the men, we got Mark, we knew Mohammed's in there, Callum Hawkins in there as well. Interesting. I'll be excited to see what Hawkins can do. Emil's doing it, of course. But I mean, Emil offered that 60-minute half in Napoli. I think rumor has it, speaking to a few people, I think he's going to be shooting for 2.6 in London.
yeah,
There's going to be a special group going for 2.6.
yeah, and it'll be great because I think it would just be a really kind of nice way to prep for that Olympic race because you don't really want to go into it like if you're a meal like thinking, oh, I've only done one marathon and it went well, but you might be kind of questioning yourself. But if he goes in, obviously off the back of this half, runs well, I think he's definitely got some confidence for Paris. But yeah, I think the men's side, Brits wise, obviously looks great. Um, Bit disappointing not to see some more some more of our top female athletes in there.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Are they all in? I've heard a few of them are a little bit injured, but they're just leaving it. They're leaving it to the selectors. Sod that. If I was a female marathon runner, wanting to book my spot at the Olympics, because look, Thackeray and Purdue, they're on the plane. Third spot's up for grabs. Got people like Rose Harvey, Jess Pizzecki. Samantha Harrison, like I know Samantha Harrison's been injured and stuff, but
Mm.
would you not just give it a shot? Would you not just sort of commit and line up and do what you
Well, that's
can to
it.
go
I
in that
feel like
style?
if
And
you go
if you
there
don't
and you
race, it's out
run,
of your hand.
yeah, if you go there and you run what, 225, should pick you.
Yeah, that's shape. That for me would be I think the selectors will
Yeah,
go, that's good enough. Boom.
yeah.
Or you finish top Brit. Yeah, top Brit 225. Boom. You
Because
haven't got to
otherwise,
go
what,
run 220.
Rose? Yeah. I mean, Rose Harvey's the next fastest, isn't she? So you presume they're just going to pick her.
Yeah, so Rose Harvey's probably the only one where you're going, well,
Yeah,
she's
maybe
the
I
next
don't run.
fastest.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a case. But the others, I mean, hey, look, Clara Evans is going to go if they're all injured. But on the actual start line, I think Becky Briggs and Alice Wright, 229. I mean, Alice Wright's got good credentials. I mean,
Mm.
what do you do if she
That's it. I
goes and
mean,
runs?
imagine one of them comes in, runs 225. Then
Yeah,
everyone else is
it's a
just
headache.
like,
It's a headache.
yeah,
It's a headache. And if I was an athlete, I just, knowing the British athletic system, I would never ever want to leave that down to the selectors. Um,
no.
so I was surprised not to see them on there. I think they're all injured and know they're out of shape, or they're just all shying away, which pretty poor to be honest with you. Especially with kind of like you presume appearance fees and good money on offer as well. So hey, there you go. But the men's side stacking up, mate. That
Yeah.
looks serious. Obviously we mentioned the mill. Mark and Mohammed, that's going to be for me. That's the third spot, isn't it? There, right there, those
Mm.
two, and if you're Hawkins as well. You probably just got to go with those two. We'll talk about London more nearer the time, but uh, yeah, that's it's going to be quite something. Let's move on to. There's a few races coming up, mate. What we got in the counties? In the counties, which is going to be this weekend, and actually, by the time people are listening, it's been done and dusted. But I thought I'd just mention again, bit of a shame not to see some. Well, one, the parking, it's just a laughing stock. You're going to make people park in Nottingham Town Centre and get the bus or the tram, or forget what transport was even they were suggesting to go to a cross country race. I mean, Jesus Christ. I think it seriously needs evaluating. I don't know why we just can't host these big races at the same venue every year. We hosted trials at Liverpool every single year. And I'm starting to think we should do the same with nationals. We should do I mean, in the counties, I guess it has been the same in previous years as well. But yeah,
Yeah, it's getting out of hand, isn't it? Some of these domestic races where you say, oh yeah, the field's a bit diluted, but what is the incentive for top
intent.
athletes to run at these events? There isn't one. But like apart from the men and women who like have grown up with a sport and they just love to add an inter-counties like title to their resume,
Mm,
like those
mm,
people who
mm.
actually just love the sport, like, and it's a historic event. But I think we're trying to rely on that too much these days when it's not got the same kind of lure that it did even
Mate,
10
good.
years ago. So I
Yeah.
just, well, I just, yeah, what do we expect really?
They're ruining cross country, mate. I mean, say it time and time again. We talk about incentives. The week after, we had Barnsley on last week, Podium Festival. Jesus Christ, Nick Griggs, Jake Whiteman, Hagos Gebriwet, like every other domestic Johnny Day, every
Yeah,
other domestic 5,000 runner. I think Will Barner goes on start list, Johnny Davies. Like, there's so many names I could list. Same on the women's side. They've got so many women sub 16:30 over 5K. They've got international athletes they've attracted. Look, boom. And that's the thing. That race is a week later, virtually the same location in Leicestershire, but they've just given people a reason to run. They've hyped it up. They've built up the race.
yeah,
In the counties, it used to be cool to get a county vest. County champs is dying. In the counties is dying, and British athletics cross challenge is just dying as well. And yeah, I don't. And again, I feel like it had the opportunity this year to be quite special, but then they just completely fucked up the world cross selection policy.
yeah, yeah.
Who drags out a selection policy over four different fucking races? That is just ridiculous.
It is bonkers, isn't it? I don't even, yeah, I'd love to know who cooked that one up. They're probably thinking it would
Anyway,
change, change perceptions. They'd be like, oh, well, this is our best selection policy yet, So
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows? Anyway, we'll
It's
stop moaning. We'll stop
frightening.
moaning.
Yeah.
Look, that Podium
Just gonna
Festival
say that.
event, obviously next weekend. So keep a lookout for that sort of stuff. Like a whole host of athletes. Obviously, you had Chris on the podcast last week to talk about the event itself. So go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, there is some serious talent at Podium Festival next weekend, and obviously a bit of a battle of the brands as well. Matt, one more thing we just wanted to talk about before we finish then was obviously we've heard a bit more about this Michael Johnson Track League. I did hear a rumor there's gonna be no field events, so that one enticed me quite a bit, if I'm honest. But apart from that, we still don't know too much, do we?
No, we don't know too much at all. The only reason I sort of mentioned it is it being in the mix zone over the weekend, athletes were they were keen. I think Noah Lyles, Grant Holloway spoke very, very positively about it. They wanted to get involved. A few other people as well, long jumpers and medalists and stuff. I think athletes are quite excited, but I think Kerr's on the money. Kerr even mentioned in his interview, he's got a few matchups coming up
Mm.
between we can only predict Jakob. Well, he said he was going to announce his race schedule at some point in the interview. And I feel like that's all we need. That's all we need. That's all we want, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just like head to head. I say it time and time again with you. We just need more meets like Highgate and more meets that just focus around one or two things. I've been commentating on a few pole vault meets recently, and they've been amazing. Do you know why? Because it's just pole vault, and you can just follow the
Mm.
event, and it is exciting. And people are attacking, heights and stuff, and it is tough. It's tough to follow sport when there's a million different things going on.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the stadium actually soaking it all up on
Yeah.
TV, it's too bitty on TV. It's just like, just show me the race, or just show me that it's just people say about split screen, but I don't want my TV
Oh, I
shrinking.
know, but and it's like I just don't watch live athletics, mate, anymore. Unless
It's
it's
good.
like oh yeah, tune in for Josh Kerr's final or whatever. There's no way I'm sitting through the whole coverage.
Well, I think we said last week, didn't we? For me, not much needs to change, but the presentation. That's the
Yeah.
presentation and the fixtures and making the races mean a little more. They're kind of doing that with the world ranking spots. I think you should just qualify for champs off of, not off of world ranking points, but off of actually like qualification races. I think the NCAA system
Yeah.
just haven't there. Said that time and time again.
Yeah.
But on the NCAAs, actually, mate, that's a good point. I just thought we'd go there and say that's this weekend. Everyone's seen it go down by the time they're listening. But to qualify for the NCAAs, you had to run a 3:55.4 mile and a 7:43 3,000 and a 13:27 5,000 while I'm at it on the men's side. Like
Yeah.
what?
And then women's.
13:27? Jesus. And this is the thing. We moan about the Olympic time being 13:05, but I'm like, well, if 13:27 is the last man in at the
Mm,
NCAAs, they have 24 at the NCAAs, 24 qualifier, or is it 16? Might be 16. Might be
16, I think.
yeah, I feel like it might be 16 as well.
It's a straight
But
final. Yeah.
yeah, but like
Yeah. Oh
there's
yeah,
no
but
waiting
like
list.
you say,
It'll be
it,
30.
it's brilliant because it just allows the best athletes to do it, and you actually have a true reflection of the
Yeah.
NCAA. Like you win the NCAAs, you are the best in the NCAA. You come fifth in the NCAAs, you're the fifth in the NCAA. Whereas
Hmm.
with like the country allowances and different things, you're never really sure. Like you come seventh in the 5K in the world champs, you're not seventh best in the world.
Yeah. And like
So
the NCAA don't set qualification marks, they set mark you got to be the last man in or the last
mm,
woman in. And there's no knowing what that mark's going to be. Obviously, from previous years, you kind of roughly know. And then you go fight for your spot at a champs. So,
yeah,
and I feel like
it's
that's,
exciting as well.
yeah, that will encourage people to bloody race. At the moment, they just know they do one mark and that's it. Oof,
Yeah.
see ya.
Well,
But
in NCAs when they have the last chance meets. Imagine we had a last chance Diamond League in Monaco,
ah,
pre-Worlds. It'd be unreal. It'd be absolutely
too
unreal.
good. Too
So
good. What else has happened this
yeah.
week? Oh, Beijing's hosting Worlds in 2027 and London potentially in 2029. They're going to bid for it. Um, is this good? I mean, mate, to be honest, people are saying how amazing it is. I agree because I feel like World Athletics have tried to put on meets in different areas, in different continents. And yeah, like Moscow 2013 springs to mind. That was dull. Um, what else? But since then, to be fair, we've had where were the world champs in 2015? Was that Beijing and then London 2017?
Beijing,
Yeah,
yeah.
Beijing 2015. Yeah. So I was gonna say since then it's been good. It's been Beijing, London. I mean, Doha obviously like it was a bit hit and miss. I thought it was fantastic towards the end once everyone just, barged in without a ticket. But it was incredible when I was there. Um, but yeah, so I think actually going back to these like historic stadiums, it's not a bad shout.
No, no, it's not. And as long as the bidding process is fair and all of that, like I think look, all power to anyone who wants to host it, you know. So I think as long as they're picking people or like picking nations, I mean, for the right reasons, then I don't see why you can't continue to have it in places like Beijing or London. And then if a new one crops up, like someone wants to take it on and they're like, actually, yeah, pretty good bid, then go there. Like I don't think it needs to kind of move around more or move around less. I think as long as they're just taking into account kind of the bids they get and doing it fairly and properly that way, then that's absolutely fine, you know. I do think like yeah, the point you made at the start, like, I do think people do like coming to race at the kind of some of these historic tracks, nations that kind of have a rich history in track and field as well. So yeah, it'll be good. And look, we need to make a better use of that London stadium, don't we? Because they have crap going on in there every weekend, don't they, mate? So
Miserable football at the moment. Miserable
yeah.
football.
So right, but anyway, that pretty much wraps us up, mate, doesn't it? So thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back with a guest episode for you very, very soon. But we thought definitely important to cover these well. So hopefully you enjoyed listening to us ramble on.